Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by learning to develop yourself, your skills, your network, and more. I'm Brian, your host. Hey, in honor of Memorial Day, I'm offering 50% off Dev 30. Dev 30 is 30 days of learning JavaScript, how to build in public, and creating a coding schedule you can actually stick to. This, in my opinion, is the best way to learn JavaScript if you're still struggling or stuck. And it's only $49. We've been doing this program for years now and have had hundreds of people go through it. And to me, it's a no-brainer. You work directly with me, as well as Laura, our director of engineering. You get access to our Slack group and all the material to actually learn how to set up Git, make a coding schedule you can stick to, as well as the basics of JavaScript and beyond. Head to dev30.xyz to check out the program and save your spot. Anyway, in this episode, I'm going to speak with Anne Linebarger, a former music educator turned front-end developer, about her unorthodox journey into tech. We're going to dive into what it's like switching careers, why learning to code is more mindset than JavaScript, and how she landed a developer job without grinding LeetCode or really using LinkedIn at all. I hope you enjoyed this episode and enjoy your Memorial Day. See ya. Today on the Develop Yourself podcast, I have a very special guest, Anne Linebarger. She's going to talk about her transition from education into software. She's a former student at Parsity, and she got hired recently, and we want to talk all about the messy process that goes into getting hired, how it's not really this like manicured path like it used to be. And she's taken a very interesting way to do it. Like, you've done it in a fairly unique way, I think, and I think it's worth diving into. But before we start on that, can you just kind of quickly share your path to tech? Like, what made you go from educator to thinking, you know what, I want to go to Parsity and enroll in this course and learn to code and then get myself a different career?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Thanks for being on here.
And so my background is in music, and I teach at a community college. I teach music and I also perform, but I got really burned out and was just taking a hard look at my career long term and the opportunities in higher education and the competition in that industry just didn't feel worth it. It didn't feel worth it to go back and get a doctorate. My heart wasn't in it anymore. And a doctorate is something that you should really only do if you want to do that. And I had kind of lost the spark for it. Mm-hmm. And I tried out a bunch of different hats, was exploring a bunch of different paths, and stumbled across the Odin Project online.
The famous Odin Project.
I know.
Yes.
And I just fell in love. I fell in love with the process of coding, the community of developers. I started going to meetups. I did a hackathon, and each step that I took forward felt very affirming of, I'm in the right place. I'm doing the right thing. These feel like my people.
Yeah.
And after about a year of doing that, I was like, I'm ready for the next push forward. And I had been listening to this podcast, and I love the advice that you share and the honesty of how...
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a complicated process. And I think telling people that it's just going to be step 1, step 2,
3
get a
months
job.
And then boom, 100K. You know?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not that. It's everyone has a different process. It's messy and complex, just like life. And so about a year ago-ish, I started Parsity, and that's just been a continuation of the learning, the challenging, throw yourself at something that scares you and see what comes of it. And that process has got me to where I am.
That is awesome. And where are you working now? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm a front-end developer at a music nonprofit called the Boulanger Initiative. It seeks to promote the works of women composers. So this is directly related to stuff that I was doing back in my academic days. I did an independent study on underrepresented composers. So this weirdly is like the perfect in-between of my old life as a musician and an academic and my new life as a developer. So it's been really cool.
Super cool. And it's interesting, isn't it? Like, that's not the job that you would normally think of when people think software developer. They think like Google or Apple, and they forget like every company is basically a software company that has a website, some sort of web properties, maybe even more than that. And they need people that know how to write code to do it. What a cool story. And I know more than a few people. We were just talking about this before we hit record about the odd what's it called? The odd pipeline from musician to software developer. Just briefly, what is your take on that? I'm not a musician, but why do you think, does it activate the same parts of your brain? Do you feel like it's helped you to learn how to code, knowing how to read and write music or read and play music?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a couple of things. I think both code and music are very pattern based. This is something that comes up a lot in that discussion. And I think it's also a similar personality type. It's people who get really obsessive about quality and can spend hours and hours on end in a room, either with their instrument or with their computer, honing their craft, trying things out, working on making it better. And the process feels very similar.
That's interesting. This is what Zubin's told me. And before I get too much off a tangent, because I really want to talk about your job search mostly, that I think it also must set the right expectations, because when you're trying to learn a skill like music, most adults haven't really learned much, right? Like after school, we just kind of stop at 18 or 22 when you graduate from college. That might be the last time somebody's actually done any formal education. But if you're playing music or you're actively acquiring a skill, you kind of understand it's a bit of a messy process. And you're like thinking, okay, it's going to take a lot of dedication time. I'm going to suck. And then I get a little better. And then I'm going to suck some more. And then I'm going to realize how much I don't know. And then you go through the whole process. And I have to imagine it must be the same thing with music that might give you that expectation when you learn how to code.
Absolutely. And it's sort of that you go up in levels, and at each new level, you realize that have a new level to get to. Mm-hmm. And so even people who are professional, tenured symphony musicians are still analyzing their own playing, thinking about how to get better. What's the next, challenge for me? Because that's what's exciting about it. That's why we all pursued it in the first place, is because it was this huge mountain to overcome. And you want to keep climbing. Yeah, there's no end.
That's the cool thing. There's no end to it. Like, yeah, you're right. With music or coding, like I've been doing it for about 11 years now. And in many ways, I feel like I'm really at the beginning in some ways. Like, I feel like, man, what's it going to be like? Where am I going to be in 20 years? Because then I have that horrible habit of looking at other people and thinking, oh, man, that person has 20 years experience. I wonder what they know that I don't know yet. Or a quarter century, or somebody's worked, coding for 40 years. I'm like, wow, where am I going to be at that stage? And what do I not know that I want to know? That's a very cool perspective to have. And now let's get to the thing that everybody wants to know about. Everybody wants to know the secret. And tell us the secret. How did you?
Well,
how did you get hired?
I don't have all of the answers, I don't think there is a secret, but I will tell you what happened for me.
Okay.
So I was genuinely just catching up with a friend who used to work at this company that I work at now. And we were talking about my dev stuff sort of came up, and she was like, oh, I heard about this job. Would you be interested? And I looked at it, and it was React and, stuff that I felt pretty familiar with. And I just said, okay, let's do this. I was at a point in my journey where I wasn't looking for jobs. I wasn't thinking about applying for things. I didn't have a resume. Mm-hmm. I very much still thought of myself as a student, but that was kind of a switch moment for me of, oh, I can do this. And so I just sent my materials in.
Yeah.
They called me in for an interview. We got along really well. There were 2 more rounds that got increasingly more difficult, and I had to put in the work to feel confident walking into those and making sure that I knew what I was saying and that I was saying technically accurate things. Mm-hmm. And they liked me enough that I got the job.
That's awesome. That was so cool. I remember working with you a little bit on the interview process. I remember you DM'd me and we were kind of going over some scenarios and things to prepare for. What was your interview like for people listening? Many people, they tend to think that it's going to be like all algorithm data structures. And I don't want to say that's not the case, because it is for some people, but the overwhelming majority of people have interviews that I believe are going to be more like yours. So can you tell us a little bit about what your interview process was like?
Yeah. So there were 3 interviews. The first one was just sort of a typical, tell us about you,
Yeah.
culture fit with the company.
Hmm.
The next one was with the previous developer, and it was more just sort of general talking about my experience, seeing if I knew how things worked, could speak intelligently about how to make an API call,
Hmm.
things like that.
Yep.
And then the third one was the most technical, and essentially what it was they sent us their code base. So we got access to their code and were asked to explain it back to them. And then
I like that.
the second bit of it was they had an idea for a feature and they asked how we would implement it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
That's a pretty standard interview process. And honestly, yours is a little bit shorter than many of the ones that I've done. I've done up to 6 rounds of interviews lately for companies I've been going for. And I've heard this story from other people too. 3 rounds is respectable. That's a nice, respectable amount of interviews right there. And so would you have known this job existed at all? Like if you hadn't brought it up to your friend, like was this like on LinkedIn? Was there like 500 applicants for this thing or what?
No, I
Okay.
didn't know about it at all. And I think she had heard about it because she was in the company and they had sent out a message like, we're looking for people.
Mhm.
And when we were talking, that was actually the position had been open for a little bit. And that week was the week that they were closing it and going to start the process.
Oh, okay.
And so it was very last minute. I sent in everything
It just worked out.
right at the finish line.
Nice.
So
That's the funny thing. It's like as much as it's really, really difficult to get hired, like I'm in the Bay Area and I'm actively, trying to find senior software engineers. The last 3 companies where I work, we were trying to find senior people to work and we couldn't find any. The last place that I was at, we spent over 3 months looking for candidates. Almost none passed the interview or none passed the interview. And at the current company I'm at, same thing. And I know it's different for more early career roles, like more junior entry level roles. But at the same time, most companies don't know how to find people. So it's this really weird mismatch of expectations. And like, it's this strange game we're playing where companies on one hand don't know how to find candidates and then candidates don't know how to link up to these companies. And what you did, I think, is more representative of what's happening and probably going to happen going forward. LinkedIn to me seems pretty broken as far as the hiring side of things goes now, like more broken than it used to be, in my opinion. And you are on LinkedIn, and I saw, you're not super active on LinkedIn, right? Like you didn't play the LinkedIn game, did you?
no.
Is that on purpose, or is that just because, like, just kind of naturally you were waiting to do it, or something like that? You just never now you don't need to.
Well, I was having some fun making little videos.
Mm-hmm.
That was more just for me and my enjoyment. And people were reaching out to me, like former educators who had transitioned into software, who were just
Oh, cool.
having fun conversations
Mm-hmm.
about the way that I was presenting code. So that was more just fun and a way to build community, which is, I think, a fun way to use that platform.
Yeah.
But once I was sort of in the process for this job, it didn't feel like the most important place to be putting my energy.
Oh, yeah, totally. I agree with you. It's weird because I feel like I'm Mr. LinkedIn, within Parsity at least. I'm always like encouraging LinkedIn usage because I know it works. I know it's like the safest route to go. But I'll be honest, I look at the developers I've worked with over the years, and most of them have like LinkedIn's with like 100 connections. And they tend to be pretty well employed. I think the game is different if you're coming in from an outside, but I'm beginning to rethink how I'm thinking about LinkedIn for sure, because I'm basically finding all my jobs off LinkedIn. I'm either going through referrals, or, I'm in a pretty lucky position where people can find me through my articles, through LinkedIn, through other things. I mean, I have a pretty big social media presence. But if I was starting off now, or I was talking to my son, who's like 19, wanting to get into tech, I would say, go to LinkedIn, but maybe don't like put all your eggs in that basket. Cause I really do believe that there's a whole subset of jobs outside of LinkedIn that aren't going to be on there. And the only way to really get to them is looking in your like actual people, which is harder actually. It's tough to reach out to people. You got sort of lucky in quotes here that you had somebody approach you or you just found out about a job. But I feel like that's actually kind of a common story, like much more common than I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got another interview a similar way.
Wow.
I went to an event a code retreat just because it sounded fun. And the person running the event was like, "Hey, are you looking for work?" Their company was looking for interns. And so I got to go through like a more technical interview process with them too. Didn't get the job, but learned a ton in the process. So going out into the world and talking to people seems to be useful and is also just good for us as humans.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
I also want to be in this career because I like the people and I want to be in the community. And
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, building my community is also an important part of building the life and the career that I want.
That's a really great take. I like that. And I don't hear enough of that kind of thing. I sometimes speak to people on the phone that are interested in Parsity, and I'll usually ask the same kind of questions, like, oh, what led you to want to code? And sometimes people will say weird things like, I don't like people. And I'm like,
good luck.
Well, good. Yeah. Right. Like, good luck. Cause, the developer community is vitriolic as it can be. It's also exceptionally welcoming. Like, you can meet people from like all sorts of levels that are just willing to reach out and talk to you because they just like this stuff. And you can go to meetups like you're doing and meet people. I was in San Francisco yesterday and I met like a tech influencer randomly in a workspace. And I'm like, dude, I follow you. He's like, oh yeah, man. Hey, good to see you. And then he like DM'd me on Instagram. I was like, it was mind blowing me, but it reminded me about how welcoming it can be in this space to be in. It reminds me, where are you located? Because you're not located like in a major tech hub.
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
That's okay. That's kind of a tech hub actually. So so you have a lot of opportunities to do in-person things there. But I think Austin, Seattle, San Francisco, but there's more places than just that. Now, Charlotte's an emerging tech hub for sure. I've worked with a ton of people out there. There's a lot of opportunity out there. It sounds like. But that's really cool that you're doing that. Where do you see this going in the future? Like, I know you just kind of started, but like, what do you see is like next in this beginning stage of your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. The next thing I want is to be on a real tech team. Right now, the company that I'm at, I'm the only technical person. Okay. So there's a lot of learning opportunities that I feel like I'm not getting yet. Code reviews, being around more senior engineers. That's sort of like the next step that I want is to be around the people with the experience and the knowledge and the wisdom so that I can absorb and learn, get all of that challenge, right? And then long term, I think my teacher will eventually come out and I'll want to present and share and write and do all of those things. But for now, it's about building knowledge and skill so that I feel confident in what I would be presenting.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, I think we all start in that kind of place. I mean, some people are very lucky and get on like a really, solid tech team or something at first, and they just kind of learn from there. But often we have to make like pivots and go places. Like sometimes I'll move for money, which, just being honest, like I'll move companies for money. That is usually the biggest motivating factor. But after I did that a couple of times, I realized actually the smarter thing to do was to go for learning, because that would then ladder up to making more money in the long term anyway. So I've kind of made that a conscious move in my career, is like going places where I know I'm going to learn a lot. And it's been cool. I mean, I've learned from really good people. You're lucky you're in an area like that where you can meet a lot of people even outside of work to do this kind of things. So it sounds like, I'm sure people hearing this sounds like all roses and candy canes. Like, oh, wow, you did this. And how'd you do with all the self-doubt and like, just feeling like, geez, is this going to happen? Am I good enough? Because those thoughts must have been in your head too, right?
Absolutely. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be working in software, I'd look at you like you were absolutely insane. I never felt confident around computers. I remember my first time working in the command line, I was like, I'm going to break it. Everything's going to blow up.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah.
And it has been a process of accepting that I'm scared. And this is something that I've learned as a musician too, and something that I teach my students. That fear, even though it feels real in your body, it's not a real threat. It's not a real bear running at you, right?
Yeah.
You're just scared that you're gonna like look silly.
Yes.
Which, if you look silly, oh well,
Yeah.
we've all looked silly at some point.
Mhm.
And every time those feelings would come up, I have enough of a track record with myself of falling on my face, often publicly, right? As a performer.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
you
Okay.
just fall on your face and
Mhm.
you got to get back up.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode, and if you're interested in becoming a software developer, learning how to build complex software, and actually get hired, join me at Parsity.io. If you're serious about joining, just schedule a call with me by clicking the link in the show notes below.
That is, it resonates with me a ton because we all know that feeling. It's like our Neanderthal brain, right? Like rejection, being excluded from the herd, which would have meant death, 1,000 years ago, or wherever back in history. And now we have that same response where it feels like, oh my God, my life is coming to an end.
Yep.
And you try to avoid this rejection however possible, and you get in your mind. And so what would you tell people that are feeling like this? Because this is the number one issue with most people learning to code. It's not technical. It's not like the JavaScript you're going to learn. That's certainly part of it. But like the bigger issue to me is the mindset. I hate even saying mindset because it sounds so like fluffy, but it's true. It's like there's a massive piece of this that requires a certain mindset to have. How do you develop that? If you developed it naturally through performing and music, how can other people develop that, do you think?
Yeah. Well, mindset's a good word. And there's actually the book Mindset by Carol Dweck that's about growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are the kind of person that likes a book, that's a good book that goes over, right?
Okay.
This essentially the premise is growth mindset is I can get better or I can improve. And fixed mindset is I am this. I am whatever I am right now.
Yep.
And neither of them are permanent. It's something that we're all sort of fluctuating between all the time. And so what you have to do is become aware of your own self-talk and be able to say like, oh, that's not true. That's just the voice in my head that's telling me that I can't do this. Mm-hmm. Or that's just my amygdala, right? Whatever works for you, you can give it a name. I had a very annoying voice in my head and I named it Brenda. Sorry to all the Brendas out there. But anytime I was being really hard on myself, I'd just be like, shut up, Brenda. Like, no one wants to hear that.
Why would you say that, Brenda? Yeah.
But then it would go away because I would recognize that that's not real. That voice in your head does not have to be the truth.
I've dealt with that myself. I think many of us deal with that, like really negative self-talk. And, and I learned through not only reading, but I was one of those people that thought, well, this is this is my inner being speaking to me instead of this chattering monkey that's just kind of always on. And through reading about meditation, actually, and in practicing that, which I never thought I'd be doing in my life, honestly, it helped me to understand, okay, so this voice that's constantly on in my head is it ultimately under my control. And it's also not like my inner being, right? It's not like the voice of like God or something in my head, which I think a lot of us think it is like, this is what I really think. And you're right. Like we put a lot of barriers around ourselves before the world really ever does. It's kind of sad because I definitely fell into this too. I thought, okay, I'm too old. I didn't grow up with computers. I'm an outsider. No one's going to take me seriously. I'm going to get laughed out of this interview. I just thought all these just silly scenarios, right? And now I have the benefit of time and experience and have some wins on my belt that I can look back and say, okay, that's silly. But when you're in it, it really can be really, really difficult. That's a great book. I'm actually going to put that in the show notes. So if you want to check it out, because I think that's super important. You can learn to code dang near anywhere. I mean, that's something you can learn. It's really hard to like keep yourself on track and actually stay the course and do the thing. I love your advice. You definitely got to write a lot more. I want to read more of what you're writing out there.
I want to write more. I'm starting to feel the like creative energy
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah.
So
Now that you're like over the huge hump, that like getting the jobs, that major hump. Before I let you go, I got to ask you some hot takes. But before I get some hot takes, what's your advice for someone like you coming from maybe a non-technical career who wants to break into tech?
Run towards the things that scare you or excite you.
Like that.
I know I'm talking here and I sound like I'm confident, but I'm an introvert. I've struggled with social anxiety for a long time. Going to meetups was terrifying. But I have gained so much from that experience that it was absolutely worth it to do the thing that scared me. And I feel so much better going than sitting at home and being worried about
wondering what if.
Yeah. So find those opportunities. If there's a hackathon, do it. If there's a person that seems interesting, talk to them. Run towards it.
It's really good. Jeez. You got some knowledge they definitely won't get in college, for sure. What was your worst fear? Like, because everybody had like some scenario in their head. Like mine was getting laughed at. What was your worst fear about going to like a meetup?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Feeling, ooh, you got me. Feeling I didn't belong. But I've been very fortunate to find spaces that are incredibly welcoming. And if the space isn't welcoming, I don't have to return.
Or you don't have to stay either. You can walk right out. Yeah.
But my experience with developers is they want to share their knowledge. They are excited when people walk in the room and are excited. So if you're scared of going and talking to people because you don't feel like you're a developer, you don't feel like you're going to fit in or you're going to look silly, none of that matters. If you want to go hang out with other nerds, go hang out with the other nerds.
Go hang out. Yeah. It's amazing what we have. We have more in common than we don't.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
And I learn from them every single time I go. I learn something new.
Exactly. Yeah. I bond with people I never would have thought. Like my brother's a rapper. Like I like gangster rap stuff and I have a different background than a lot of other software engineers, but guess what? I've met people and we can nerd out on all sorts of stuff and people want to talk about this because like I have a partner, right? You have a fiance, right? Mm-hmm. Can you talk to them about, your they don't care. Because the last thing they want to like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care. You squish this bug after it. Well, okay, that's cool. Right. But you can talk to the developer and they're going to immediately understand like what you're talking about. They're going to understand your frustrations, like learning like TypeScript or React, or whatever. It's, oh yeah, I hate that too. Or you can commiserate together. You have this bond immediately. They just understand a little bit more than the average person that doesn't code. So it's a great point. Like developers are a nice bunch, despite what you might read on Twitter,
Well, and there's always people that are going to...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In any group.
Out there. Yeah.
But overall, my experience is that people really, they want to connect. They want to have a good time. They want to help.
Maybe don't go to a Stack Overflow meetup or something like that. Yeah. I probably would steer clear of that one. But other ones probably safe to go to. All right, before I let you get out of here, what are some hot takes? I have 3 questions I want to get your take on. Overrated advice you heard during your job search.
Ooh. The focus on super technical interview prep. I know that happens at bigger tech companies, but both of the interview processes that I went through seemed much more focused on how you think and your ability to communicate. So the more energy you spend practicing talking, that seems to be a more important. Not that it's not important to know about data structures and algorithms, but
absolutely,
they didn't come up for me at all.
Yeah, I people hate when I say it. Then like, well, I mean, like again, I don't want to say I don't study stuff or don't learn stuff. Like, learn all sorts of stuff. But like, if your goal is to get a job and interview, you probably don't want to mash 500 LeetCode problems. And speaking into a camera is probably one of the best pieces of practice you can do. It's one of the best practical things you can do to actually get prepared for that. Really, really good one. Yeah. What is the most unexpected skill from your old career that's helped you in tech?
I think communicating and performing.
Performing. Interesting.
So,
but I can see why. Yeah.
As a teacher, you're getting up and curating an experience for people. Mm-hmm. And in an interview, you have a short amount of time to make a big impression.
Yes. And
so it kind of is a performance, if you want to think about it like that.
You're right. Yeah.
That helps me, at least, to separate myself from the process, to say, I'm presenting this version of myself that is capable of doing this job and is a professional in this space. That's been a helpful tool for me to have in that process. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Because I just think like a light bulb went off. I think about my interviews, and I always treat them like that. I treat them essentially like I don't care I care who the person is, but I'm going to talk to them as if I'm teaching them, even if it's very apparent that they know more than me. Because the whole goal is like, I'm trying to show how I communicate. So I can't take into account like your background or anything. I'm basically put on the same show, quote unquote, for anybody that might be in the room. That's the way I generally approach them. I act as if I'm teaching somebody something when I'm walking through code. That's the way my mental kind of state when I do it. Sounds like the same for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful framework to use, because if you can teach something, you actually understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's why over the years, I mean, I don't do this as much, but I have probably over 100 videos of me practicing talking through like data structures and algorithms when I was going for a Google interview. And I'm like, okay, I need to really know how to speak this out loud, because I failed it like twice. So I'm like, I knew why, and doing the videos is really, really helpful for me to get further, at least in the other rounds, and help me out throughout my interview career now. I mean, I do too many interviews, if I'm being honest. I interview way too often, partly for content and partly because I'm a little paranoid and I always want to be prepared just in case something happens. I'm a little antsy like that. All right. Last hot take. If you could put a Post-it note on every new coder's laptop, what would it say?
Is it basic if it's RTFM?
For those of you who don't know RTFM, it means read the effing manual. That might be some underrated old school advice. I had a buddy tell me that 11 plus years ago. He's like, RTFM, dude. I'm like, what does that mean? He said, read the effing manual. I'm like, oh, my bad. I love it. And thank you so much for being here, keeping it real, being vulnerable, and just like giving us and everybody listening to this like some practical, real deal knowledge they can apply. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, this is a ton of fun. I think I need to get you back. Maybe, or you might need to do your own. You got too much wisdom. You might need to just do your own thing and have me as a guest on. I think that's where we're
sounds
going
great.
With this.
Let's do it.
I like it. Cool. See ya.
All right. See ya.
That'll do it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. If you're serious about switching careers and becoming a software developer and building complex software and want to work directly with me and my team, go to parsity.io. And if you want more information, feel free to schedule a chat by just clicking the link in the show notes. See you next week.